Welcome back to 40 Plus Fit, the podcast dedicated to empowering you to achieve your health and fitness goals, especially in your fantastic 40s and beyond. I'm your host, Mike, and today we're tackling a challenge almost everyone faces at some point: consistency. We start with great intentions, but life happens, motivation wanes, and suddenly we're off track. How do
Mm.
we build that unbreakable habit of showing up for ourselves? To help us navigate the common pitfalls and provide actionable strategies, I'm joined as always by our head coach here at 40 Plus Fit, Twain. Twain, thanks for being here.
Uh, Always good to be here as always, man.
All right, so it's this wonderful topic of consistency.
Hmm.
I think we've all struggled with this. We all have some kind of stories to tell, and
For
each
sure,
one of
man.
us. I think maybe one thing to probably preface this with is that there's likelihood a myriad of reasons why people fail at being consistent, right?
Yeah,
And it's probably also a personal thing. Like what might cause you to stumble might not be the thing that causes me, and vice versa.
yeah.
So I think we're going to speak at this one here from your experience of how you've actually overcome this, my experience from how I overcome, and then we're going to share also like with your clients and everybody that you've dealt with, what
Mm.
is the common general sentiments that you get from that. So if we jump right into it, why is consistency so often the hardest part of any health and fitness journey? Like, what are some of the biggest roadblocks that you see people encounter?
I mean, to be honest, I think for a lot of people, it's just literally it feels like you have to make, really, really big changes. And fundamentally, you have to shift how you approach your life, right? If you're looking at it honestly. So just the thought, that idea of that is already quite overwhelming since inertia is a real thing, right? So it's like a lot of times people don't take action until things are really, really, really bad. And even then, there's some people that just resign themselves once things are really bad.
Mm,
So I do think just the concept of and the thought of having to make such a big change can be really challenging for most people to even think about. And so then when you try to go about making those changes, every task that you think about, turns into something that feels super overwhelming to do. And then you dread it, and it feels tough to do, and your perception of it, is not very good, and it just makes you less and less likely to want to do the thing.
yeah, I tend to agree. You did touch there on one point though that I'll probably expand upon a little bit more.
Yeah,
And that's the concept you used the word there. People make a big change,
yeah,
right? And I feel like oftentimes that is one of the biggest issues when it comes to maintaining the consistency is because with our greatest of intentions, that big change is oftentimes just too big. You know, we go
yeah.
from a completely sedentary life into now we want to do, okay, we want to run 4 or 5 kms in a week. We want to do four 2 hour sessions in the gym. We want to change our eating habits. We want no more white rice, no more this, no more that, no more this. And then like 2, 3 weeks into it, we just finish. The body's like, dude, really, this is just too much. And so we start falling out, missing a workout here, missing a workout there. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
I can just have a cheat meal here, a cheat meal there, it turns into a cheat day, into a cheat week, and, and so on. It becomes a cheating life already.
yeah. I do think, based on what you said also, that there's another point here that was implied but not explicitly said, and that is life itself is not consistent. Right? We are not robots. We're not robots serving a same function every single day. Sometimes can feel like that, I guess. But um, realistically speaking, we each day that we tackle is quite different. And life is inconsistent. So because of that, we always need to be dealing with things in the moment. We need to have the skills to kind of deal with things as they come, while trying to make these changes that we're trying to make. So I think a lot of times when we talk about fitness and health, a lot of people try to build their fitness routines on this assumption, right? Like you said, oh, I'm just going to go in all intense, cut out all my rice, or run that 5 kilometer a day kind of deal, and that is based on that assumption that life won't get in the way. People don't explicitly think that, but that is what they automatically assume. So it's like And that's why a lot of times people are stuck. It's not a knowledge issue. I thought, a lot of times people think that they lack some sort of knowledge. But if knowledge was really the issue, you could go on ChatGPT, you could go on Google, you could just find a plan and follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the reality is that most of the time, as we've talked about before, it does not fit your life. And you have to look at your life and say, hey, what are all these roadblocks that I have in place? What are within my control to change? What are kind of not within my control that I need to modify certain things around? And then you work with that, right? So we always talked about systems, not motivation.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
depending on
let's
building the
continue with
system.
that, and let's maybe expand upon that because like
Sure.
a lot of people always say it's like I'm too busy, at this and that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think perhaps
Classic
we can
excuse.
just break down a bit more of some practical strategies, for fitting workouts and healthy eating really into the pack schedules. I use that in inverted commas here,
Mm.
or what is it? Air quotes, I think the Americans call it. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I use the packed workouts, the pack schedule. So, what are some practical strategies that you can use in order to help people to actually fit workouts and healthy eating into it, especially if going from not doing anything into actually starting to continue on with this kind of healthy life or healthier life, shall we say?
Practical tips. Man, there are so many to be honest. But I think if I look at it from, let's talk about principles when it comes to these things, right? So, practically, how do you apply? What's
Mm.
the principle and how do you apply it? So, uh, I think the first thing is auditing your life, like auditing your actual day and your schedule and be real honest with yourself. It's very easy to just not do this and say, no, I'm really busy. I have all these other things to do, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, sure, I get it. Everybody's life is busy. Let's be honest, look at your life and say, list down all the things that you're doing today. And then honestly look at all these things and say, are you doing a lot of these things based upon your own internal pressure of like you must be the one to get it done, or it's really really important to you to do it, and measure that against the actual objective impact that it has. And that's when you start to realize and you look at all these things and you look at it and you say, okay, this task at work, who does it really impact? How does it actually really hit the bottom line? How important is it really? And then you start to go through that filter and you realize, shit, out of the 100% of things that I have to do, only 20% of those really move the needle, really have a meaningful impact. And it applies to every sector of our lives, our personal lives, our work lives, our own relationships and stuff, all these kind of aspects. So a lot of it comes down to that 20% of the basic shit that you actually need to do, right? So auditing your schedule, auditing your life, and then learning to say, okay, this is way too much for me to do, right? What can I either outsource or how can I just draw a line somewhere? Because a line needs to be drawn. Otherwise, what's the alternative? You're just going to keep going down this same path ultimately and keep giving yourself the excuse that you can't do anything and you won't make a change. So fundamentally, this is the first biggest block that a lot of people have. If you're not willing to change, it's probably not going to be very likely that you will. Yeah. So how do you actually apply that? Really, it's just auditing your lifestyle. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. And I'll go one step further from my experience with pro- with myself, but also with people that I've walked this through with, is that when you do that audit, don't only restrict it to yourself. Also find somebody that you trust and share that with them because they can
Yeah.
speak a little bit more objectively and they can question you. Like,
Mm.
this is you setting aside 4 hours a night to watch TV. It's like, is that really within your goals of something that you want to achieve? And they can
Yeah.
just make you go back and think about it. So I
Yeah.
always find there are a percentage of the population that can 100% just go through their calendar and they can say like, okay, I need to take this out. I need to take that out. I need to take this out. But there are the rest that look at it and say, this is important. This is important as well. Oh, this is important. But when you come and objectively look at it, it's like you could, as you say, you can do away with 80% of this already. Because only the 20% is actually what counts here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, that's the first thing, right? Because once you look at that, then you really understand where are these pockets of time that I actually have the time available. Okay, because there are two elements here we need to consider. One is the quantity in terms of the structural day-to-day linear time frame. Okay, everybody has this 24 hours, true, but it's not the same 24 hours for everybody. Okay, so true enough, everybody has different lives, different responsibilities, obligations. But we can audit that and say, where are the time spots that we have? Now, aside from that, we also have to look at the quality of our time spent. And that comes down to the mental bandwidth that we actually do have. So you could have 6 hours, you could be able to pull out 6 hours easy and say, like, cool, I have these 6 hours in my day that I've been spending doom scrolling and all. But the reason why you're probably spending that time doom scrolling is because in the other hours when you're doing your work and all, you're so bogged down, your entire mental bandwidth is just completely taxed out. So that's where you need to go into the quality of like, where are you paying this attention to,
Mm.
in your work and stuff. And that's why I say it's so important to really look at the tasks that you are doing and audit them. Um, the and this is a tricky subject to talk about because again, everybody's life is so different. But I can share my own experience as a business owner or entrepreneur. Again, I put that in air quotes. I don't really like the term to be honest. I just think like I just own a business and I coach people, right? That's it. So, but as a business owner, like beyond just coaching people, we need to do the business side of things. And then Mike, you obviously understand this as well because
Mm.
you're in the same kind of spot, right? And we as a business owner, because everything's under your purview, everything feels important. But the reality is you need to structure things and say, okay, cool. What are the most important things to get done for each of these sectors in the marketing side of things, in the sales side of things, in your operational side of things, in the admin side of things? What are the key things that we need to get done? And then what are the stuff that we can outsource? Then we outsource those, right? Or what are the things, and that's why we're always working on systems, we're always working on things that can help us um, lighten that load a little bit better. So this is something that you can also apply even if you're just, let's say, an employee, right? A functional employee, you're doing a specific function. I've had met many of my friends who are, they all are working in different jobs as a employee, but they use this same kind of mindset to figure out how to balance out their workflow so that they don't get super overloaded. And right now, there is a large push, right, by corporations, especially in Singapore. I mean, we're from Singapore, from Asia. A lot of these um, companies right now, they do not have any true work-life balance, right? We're not talking about like Europe, like working like the French, right?
Yeah.
Where I've
Free
heard
Hegel.
that it's written in law, you can't email somebody on the weekend, stuff like that,
Or
and
after
that's
seven.
pretty.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, something like that. So but in Singapore, at least I know from my friends, or even not, yeah, like so many of my clients that from Singapore, a lot of them are, 9 p.m. they still are on their phones trying to do some work, after they put the kids to bed, whatever it is. So it's never ending, right? And you have to be real about like pushing back and saying, drawing that line. Now, would that impact your career? Maybe it might, maybe it not, maybe it might not, but you will never know until you try it out, and then maybe you might figure out a better solution, right? Maybe it's time to change your career or whatever. I don't know. Obviously that's not within my expertise or my realm to advise on. But this is where I feel we have to be really real about things and learning where to draw those lines. Because ultimately there are certain things that matter a lot more. And at the end of the day, your health, especially with your kids, being there for your kids, it's super important. So your health and your vitality is so important to be able to see your kids grow up and be there for them far into your old age. Like
Mm.
that's essentially what life is about, right? So yeah, so honestly, I think that's really the first step. It's just auditing everything, being very real, and like you said, getting somebody to be an objective third person, and giving them that permission to question you on these things.
Yeah. So we'll go through the audit, and then after the audit is done, don't let it stop there, but actually
Yeah,
now start applying and putting in the plan. So if this is what I've decided, and I see now I have gaps here, I have gaps here,
yeah,
then fill those gaps, because what we never want to do with regards to when we want to start something new is we don't want to disrupt our lives too much. Because
yes.
honestly, when we disrupt our lives too much, that is when we're going to fall off the bus, I find. But if you can, like the concept of that what is it? Cooking a frog or something like that, where
Yeah,
they
when
put
you
the
put a
frog
frog
inside
next
the
to them.
boiling
Yeah,
water, right? But you just put it inside regular water and then just heat up the water slowly, 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 and the next thing the frog knows, it's cooked and it doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing applies when it comes to these kind of changes, in my view, is you have your plan. Now, I gave the example in the beginning where I said it's like you want to run 4 or 5 kms, you want to do 4 2-hour workouts. Depending on your goals, that is fine. Have that goal, have that vision for where you want to be, but don't make that change overnight.
Yeah.
Break it down. Say, okay, that's what I want to work towards, and then break it down. Okay, what am I actually able to do now? And then work it. Okay, for this month, I just want to go 1 run a week, and I want to do 3 workouts.
Yeah.
And then next month, I add on another run and I can maybe increase the workouts. Or now maybe I've gone from body weight workouts, I've actually joined a gym
Yeah.
and so on and so on. But do the steps incrementally and work in like a year time frame rather than in a week time frame. Like when everybody joins the gym in January, right? And then February,
Yeah.
everybody's gone. But if you look at it, you start in January with the idea that, okay, next December, you want to hit the beach. This is in the southern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, probably in July. But you're looking at it, okay, so I'm starting now, and this is the 12 months that I'm working towards having that body that I want to hit the beach with. Or this is the 12 months that I'm finally going to get my health back on track. Rather than just talking about it, talking about it, talking about it for the last 5 years, let me set aside an actual 12 months to build in consistent habits that will change my life going forward. Not change my life overnight, but change my life going forward. That from next year onwards, going on, I'm no longer going to be struggling with these situations that I'm having right now, fitness wise, health wise, and all these kind of things. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest problems that we take is that we're looking for that microwave change, right? We just want to jump in, we want to see the change, and then we want to continue. And we're
That's a great
missing
way to
out
put it.
on that
Microwave change.
long-term oven change. Uh, and I think that's quite important that, we bring that back, the importance of that. Because
Yes.
the longer the change takes, now I don't have any research to back this up, but just from my personal experience, the longer the change takes, the longer it's going to stick.
Okay. Yeah. I get where you definitely get where you're coming from with that.
Mm,
I
That's
I
why you
really
see
like
like,
the term that you use, microwave change versus oven change. That's a great way to, that's a great visualization, to be honest. Yeah. I do think there's one thing that you mentioned, because since you're talking about habits, right?
Mm,
A large part of consistency does not come from actually the outcomes, because the outcomes are a result of consistency, right? You don't get the outcome and then you become consistent.
yeah.
So by that nature, the thing that you should be tracking is not whether or not you're achieving the result per se. That's not the most important thing. That's an important thing. That's like a 10-20%. Definitely track that. But 80% of the time, the other things you should be tracking are your actions. So you should be tracking what you do and not whether you've lost weight, whether your pants are getting looser, whether you can see more muscle, whatever.
Mm,
You should not really be tracking those things. You should be tracking more of like what are you doing at this point? Because we're trying to gain consistency. So have I hit the gym a minimum number of times? So then give yourself target ranges this way, where you can say, okay, this is the minimum amount that I'm going to hit the gym. Let's say I'm going to hit 1 time this week. Okay. If I can hit 3 times, that'll be great.
mm,
You give yourself a range and then you work with that. It might sound super low, but that's what you want to do. You want to intentionally set the bar as low as you can.
yes.
That still feels like, that still feels like you're doing something.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like when you're starting out in gymnastics or something like that, right? When
Yeah.
you watch the Olympics and you see all those aerial just craziness that they do,
Yeah.
when you go starting out, they don't put you into that and make you do all of that, right? You start out with like a forward roll, lift
Not
your
not
legs
even, man. I
up.
think I think they I think they just get you to like reach and touch your toes, and you'll be like, I can't do that. You can't do that. And they'll be like, okay, cool. Let's work on getting you to touch your toes
Yeah.
first.
So I find it very funny that when the professionals take their sport like that and they start you off at basics like that and work your way up, that
Yeah.
we as amateurs think that we can just jump in because we read this workout online and this person who's been working out for 20 years and is doing this. This is like his lifeblood, and all he needs to do. That now somehow I can fit into my schedule. And so we go in and then we can't figure out why this is not working. But jumping onto what you were saying there earlier is also is like if you take that once a week workout or that 3 times a week workout and you actually hit it, and
Yeah.
this is what I've planned in and I hit it. I always find is like once you do that, you should celebrate it. You know,
Oh yeah, for
if
sure.
I come in, I have that first week and I've put in like, let's say I'm gonna do 4 workouts this week. For when you're starting out, I find that's quite something to actually stick to. And you can do it like one celebration at the end of that week. Celebrate that you actually did this. Then if you're stuck to all your workouts for a month, celebrate that too. You mentioned like the other indicators that you see. Oh, my pants is feeling looser now. Maybe that's something that you put forward. Maybe you measure your belly size and your belly's gone down 2, 3 cm. Uh,
You have
Celebrate
to
it
celebrate these milestones for sure. I do
everything.
want to say though, the celebration that we're talking about here is not as though like,
You don't go eat
especially
a cake.
to health and especially when it relates to health and fitness, right? It's not like go out and have like a binger or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah,
don't celebrate yourself with bad habits,
correct.
basically. It's
Yeah,
okay to go out and enjoy a nice, good, indulgent meal.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. But we're not talking about like I think the key thing is intention and the way you do it. Is it very reminiscent of what you used to do in terms of the habits that got you into the original poor state you were in?
yeah.
So you don't want to do that. Yeah. Um, so celebrating is super, super important.
So the other one I also just want to touch on quickly and see what your thoughts are on that. What role does perfectionism play in consistency?
Oh man. It definitely has it's the antithesis of whatever it takes to make you consistent because it is the thing that will make you the least consistent person ever. Right? Because the
Mm.
idea of perfectionism is actually not rooted in any true desire for standard per se. It's actually an excuse that more often than not we give ourselves. I mean, obviously it's very varied, but largely in my experience talking to people, it's just an excuse that we give ourselves to not need to take the action we need to take. Because it's a lot of times people will just say, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
But you would not apply that standard to anybody else, especially let's say if you have kids, right? You would if they come to you and they tell you, hey, I can't do my homework because I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly, so I'm not going to do it at all.
Mm.
You'd be like, what the hell? No, the whole point of doing the homework is so you can get better and get closer and closer to that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, yeah, you can't be all in and thinking that everything has to be perfect. But there's no such thing. There really is no such thing.
So I
Yeah.
wanted to jump to the opposite end of that, right?
Yeah.
What about setbacks? Like you miss a workout or you have an off day with food.
Yeah.
How do you bounce back quickly from those moments?
I think just honestly, it's about being real with yourself. You have to really be objective and say, look, what's the reason I missed this thing? Like you have to take responsibility for that.
Mm.
Sometimes things are out of your control. Like they're truly out of your control, right? But there are other things, sometimes there are other things where it's like you just did not feel like it or you felt more tired, you didn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
that's okay. You can admit that to yourself and you say, okay, cool. So how can I move forward from there? The next time I feel tired, maybe instead of trying to do the full workout, I'll just get to the gym and try the first exercise. That's it. If I can do that, great. I've ticked that box. Yeah. So it's like again going back to what we talked about, creating those bare minimum aspects of the plan, which also leads me to one side note here, which is you always want to plan for your worst week. Many people always think, oh yeah, like ideally this is what I'm going to do. But no, screw that. Think about the worst week that you've had and say, what can I do even in this circumstance? And that's your bare minimum. And once you start from the bare minimum, you just end up um you just end up you know, working upwards from there. Because once you have your worst case scenario, things can't get any worse than that, really. So once you have your worst case scenario and you have that plan is going to work in any instance already. Then it's very easy to say, this is my bare minimum. If I can just tick this box, that'll be great. So for
Mm.
some clients, I give you some real world examples. For some clients where they're just starting out, and honestly, a lot of the clients that I deal with, they have very packed lives, right? Like for the men, they're just like traveling consistently for work, things like that. When they come back, they still want to spend time with the kids, with their wife, things like that. We still need to make time for all that. Those are the important stuff. But they still need
Mm,
to take care of themselves, right? So we always have to say, what's the bare minimum that you can do? Then for the ladies, I think even worse because they hold so many more roles in terms of functional roles in a house in a family unit, right? They kind of like take care of the home. I mean, women make the home in that sense, right? They make the heart of the home, right? So a lot of times it's like dealing with the kids. It's a lot of times even just maybe managing the food for the family, things like that. Being a mother, and then also trying to develop their own career, right? And then also they're the ones that have to carry the kid and then birth the kid and go through all that trauma of childbirth. So
mm,
there are also many roles. And between the two, everybody has like these whole bunch of struggles, all these obligations. So you really need to say, in the worst case, what is the little bit I can do? So practical examples, I have had clients where literally, for some of them, every day, 1 minute of exercise. That's it. That's it. I tell them, like, do you think you can just do 1 minute of squats? That's all I ask you to do.
mm,
Okay. The next day, you do 1 minute of push-ups against the wall. Not even 1 minute, just do as many as you can until you cannot push yourself up. And if that is less than a minute, that's less than a minute. That's great. You did one good set, that's it. So one day they do squats, one day they do the push-ups, one day they do some sit-ups, right? And it's just 1 minute every day. And when you frame it that way, they're like, you know what? I can do that. I can do 1 minute. I can have enough energy, even in my lowest, I have enough energy to do that. Obviously, if they don't have enough energy to do that, usually I'll ask them like, are you experiencing any kind of depression? Is this some sort of a mental,
mm,
block that you have? Then that's not within our purview. That's like, okay, talk to the therapist. But
yeah.
yeah, 99% of the clients that I talk to, they can do it. And so we start from there. And then once you build that habit, literally 7 minutes of exercise a week. But this 7 minutes is so powerful because you do it every day. And to the point where sometimes it makes it such that they actually look forward to doing that. Because now every time you get the momentum, right? You take it off and you feel excited about it. You're like, you know what, I'm taking this. And then the next thing you know, sometimes I don't even have to prompt them. What happens is they'll be like, I did 2 sets today. I'm like, cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you did 2 minutes, 3 minutes of workout, right? You did 2 sets. That's awesome. Let's
Mm,
continue with that. And then from there, you just wait a couple of weeks, they'll be like, you know what? I think I want to, I think I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more energetic. I want to try a more structured routine. And we're like, okay, let's improve that. So now it's not every day we do this exercise. Now we do a 4 time a week kind of deal. 15 minutes each time. Let's do a more of like a full workout. And I put that in inverted commas because it's a lot fuller than what they were used to doing. So it's very stepwise, but it is very impactful, believe it or not. Even that 1 minute of hard exercise is going to do like wonders for your health.
mm. I think what thing I just want to reiterate that you're saying there is that you touched upon the point that when you plan with your people, you plan a week ahead, right?
Yeah,
And I think this is the thing that, we all experience a bad day. Every one of us. There's no person that's never experienced a bad day, but there's very few of us that have experienced a bad week. So
yeah,
when you've planned a week ahead, and let's say by Wednesday is just like work overwhelms you. This happens, that happens. You end up going out and you just splurge out on whatever meal and everything you skip your workout and everything. Then so be it. If that's what you needed to get that out of your system, then that's it, right? But Thursday is now a new day and it's back to your plan that you had to put up. So you just jump back onto the actual plan that you put. There's no making up for Wednesday. You don't now go for a run in the morning when you have the workout scheduled in the afternoon to make up for the calories that you did last night. None of that. But what you just do is you just say, okay, that's it. I need to blow off that steam. Now let's jump back on the bus on Thursday and you just continue. So rather taking that mind shift away from a day focus to a week focus when it comes to planning wise.
yeah.
I find that helps me bounce back quicker.
Yeah, it is one thing to ruminate too much on a bad day that it stretches out to the rest of the week. I've had people where they are so over focused on making this day or turning around this bad day that they cannot accept that sometimes it's okay to have a bad day.
Mm.
And I can't remember where I heard this quote, or I was in a chat with a friend, and they mentioned this, where they said like some people are just so scared of wasting a day, and he put it in in inverted commas, right? Like I, some people are so scared of wasting that one day that they end up wasting weeks.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really powerful because like, oh wow, sometimes you're just not able to do it for the day, and it's okay to let go and say, today is just not my day. I'll do the best that I can.
Yeah.
And then you plan for the next day, and you say, okay, tomorrow, here's what I'm going to do. And I don't mean plan with like blind optimism. I mean plan properly, like, okay, I'm going to structure it this way. I'm going to go do these things, and that's my schedule. Okay, tomorrow,
Mm.
that's what I'm going to do. And then just accept that this day is so-called gone. Yeah, I think sometimes it can really help when you do it that way. Just let go. Just let go. Learn to let go.
Yeah.
Again, but
Like
these things.
Frozen, right?
Oh man, yeah.
As
Oh
a
yeah.
father of
This is
daughters,
where,
I've watched my fair
yeah.
share.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have because you took girls, right? So I'm pretty sure you have. But yeah, that's the main thing.
Mm.
And this is tricky because it is not so black and white, right? It's very context dependent. It's very individually determined as well. Objectively, you could easily say like, hey, there's still something you can do, right? But maybe for the individual, for that particular circumstance, maybe it's a better option for them to just let go and say, hey, for this day, everything's just not going your way. You're just up to it here. Emotionally, you're just not there. Okay,
Yeah.
what's one thing you can do to empower yourself? You do that thing. And even if that thing is, I let go of this day and I plan for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other issue that I find a lot of people uh, struggle with is that after a while, their routines that become a bit boring, right? And so
Hmm.
because it's become boring, they lose the interest, and so they start waning off, and the consistency drops. So what are some ways that you can keep your fitness journey fresh and engaging to maintain consistency?
I I think in terms of variety, I think I like to speak more in terms of broadly just because each scenario can be very specific. Yeah, but I think broadly the principle is just you need certain stalwart things in place that you use that are going to like move you closer towards your goal. They are related towards your goal. Okay. And depending on the extent of your goal, these things can have within themselves a subset of variety. So let me quickly explain with an example. Let's say if you have a goal of just getting stronger, and how you define that stronger is I want to be able to carry my kids. I want to be able to walk upstairs and not feel breathless and stuff. Those are very general fitness kind of capabilities. So there's so many ways we could do that in terms of programming. Now, somebody else might have a goal, say, I want to get shredded six pack, go on the bodybuilding stage. Okay, now that reduces down our range of options per se, in terms of like now you really have to make sure you're going to the gym, you really have to make sure you're doing resistance style training. You could start off with bodyweight stuff if you're really a pure beginner, but then leading into it, eventually you need to lift some weights, and then you need to really diet down. So we are working within those stricter parameters towards that goal. Yeah. So when it comes to variety, I do think there's certain key elements to the that are goal specific that we need to kind of have in place. And then once you have those things in place, those are the things that are going to push and get you that, 60 to 80% of that result already anyway. Then the remainder of it, you can play around, right? So again, for a general fitness example of health and fitness, are you at least lifting weights 1 to 2 times a week? Are you challenging your muscles? Are you doing certain movements where you're lifting more weight to challenge and get stronger and adapt? If you are, really, that's really good. Then the rest of the time, play around with different sports, different other activities that you might enjoy. Maybe it's just going cycling. Maybe it's just taking brisk walks. Maybe just bring your kids to the park and running around, playing with them,
Mm.
right? Like all these things are great ways to add variety into a activity regime. So that's the first way I would approach it. Yeah, just interested to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything you've said. I would only add in is that for some people, there's quite a lot of power in getting yourself a workout buddy.
Oh yeah.
And then what happens is that it's actually just the two of you, or if there's more, you coming together and spending time. And the fitness activity is just like a catalyst to do so rather than the actual thing to focus on.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, while you're working out, you're still focused. If you're doing resistance training, you're doing bench press or squat, you focus while you're doing the actual exercise. But it's not, the thing. The thing that you're coming and looking forward to might be, oh, I want to catch up with this friend. Oh, this
Yeah.
happened. I want to speak to that friend, do that. Go for a run. Oh, you can chat about your day, all these kinds of
Yeah.
things. So you get that aspect as well. And I think we touched upon this in a previous podcast episode as well.
Yeah, we were talking
And
about community, I believe.
yeah, so I
Getting your community, finding your community.
yeah. So I think we will probably talk and do another episode about this in the future, and we'll
Yeah.
see. But because I just find like for a lot of people that I've dealt with, they found a lot of power in the community rather than so much the exercise itself. Because they are the type of people that usually dread exercise. It's like, oh,
Yes.
ask me to
Yeah.
run or ask me to go to the gym. It's like, oh. But then
Yeah.
ask them to go with a few other people and then they can laugh at each other and they journey together in
Yeah.
this whole thing and it's like wow they do a lot more than what they would have done if they had gone
Correct.
by themselves.
Correct. I do think there is, look, there is a validity to the statement like you need to you need to kind of like learn to love the process. I do think that is something we should all strive towards. Even if you hate doing something, if it's good for you, try to find the parts of that thing that maybe you feel good about. But I think also, absolutely speaking, they're just it's a preference thing, right? Like you can't really explain it. Sometimes people just don't like exercise, you know. And
Yes.
if you can make that if you can put the pill in a donut or wrap it up in cheese so that you can eat it and take it, right? Like then wrap it in the cheese, you know, like it's fine. Um, and I think having people around to make the experience fun, to make it, you know, a very pleasant experience, that would be great. Will you possibly, you know, excel at it and reach a super high level? Probably not. But again, that's also might not be what you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think whatever way you can, especially if it's a social way, it's usually one of the strongest ways to get very, very consistent with an activity. And if there's one thing that I think right now is trending really well for this is the whole high rocks um, competition, right?
Mm.
The idea of doing these exercise stations running between them, and then like they turn into a race, a competition. And the best part about it, I love this so much about High Rocks in that sense. They're so shrewd about their business model, and it's such a wonderful thing because it caters to the entire range. You have the people that are maybe I don't want to say washed up athletes, right? Prior washed up athletes. Maybe they don't really want to participate in their specific sport anymore, but now they come to High Rocks, and High Rocks is at its core, High Rocks is just running with a lot of very low risk stations. Okay, so it's not exactly a really it's difficult and challenging, don't get me wrong, but it's also not super difficult to just pick up. And that's why it appeals to the entire range from people that were just like sitting on the couch, sedentary, you know, teaming up with friends to say, hey, let's go and try this thing out, right? It makes the exercise fun. And then they also cater to the higher range where it's like people want to go there and compete to score the best timings and do it. And then they can actually train for it as well. And the training for it is actually not as bad too, because I have so many clients that they sign up for the competition, they want to go and do it. And so we just alter their training a little bit, and it's actually quite easy for them to adapt. I even had one client recently, as of this recording, there was the Bangkok High Rocks. I had two clients actually, so they went and do it. And because of their limited schedule, we didn't do any simulations. So a simulation, for those who are not familiar, is where you try to simulate the race as closely as possible, which means you do the runs, you do the stations, you do the runs, you do the stations. We didn't do any simulations at all. I just gave them more specific workouts that kind of mimic some of the fitness capabilities that are required. And they just went for the race and they still completed in under the time that they wanted to. You know, so that gives you an idea of like the level of difficulty of the way the exercises are laid out in the competition itself. It is very easy for you to pick it up and do and feel accomplished. Okay, like you will be able to finish it. But if you want to go towards the highest levels, you definitely do need to train towards that. So
Mm.
it caters to this entire range, and that just man, I just love that idea because they basically took what was CrossFit and reduced those barriers even further. They made like CrossFit better for mainstream. And
Yeah.
it's getting so many people off the couch, it's getting so many people running, getting so many people moving and exercising. I think that's such a plus. Even though I've been gushing about it in this way, let me make this clear. In no way will I do a high rocks. Okay. In no way am I ever going to do a race because it does not appeal to me at all. But I can appreciate it from this perspective of like I really enjoy that idea there, pushing exercise as something everybody can do, which is
Mm.
great. That's the core why we do what we do anyway.
That's actually one of the reasons why I've always loved the sport of rugby. Because if you look at a team in
Yeah,
rugby, you have the players numbers 1 to 15, right? And each one of those players has a specific job to do. Their actual roles and responsibilities within that team is
yeah.
very specific for that particular thing. So, like you look at your number one and your number three, these are usually your biggest, fattest, or in some cases, biggest,
The
most
tanks.
muscular guys, right? But they're there to push in the scrums.
uh,
So if you take like a number 15 and you go put him in the front there, I've actually have a friend that had to go through that particular change from a seven to a one in a game because our one had to leave the field and he almost died. He said
Wait,
he just,
I'm not too familiar with rugby. So
yeah.
the one and the lower numbers are
Yes.
meant
So the
for the
number one and
scrum.
the number three is like they're the front row in the scrums. Whenever you see them, they do
Okay.
that pushing on the
Yeah,
field like that. The
yeah.
number one, two, and three are the ones there.
Oh, I
So,
see.
I mean, I won't go into too much detail because it's quite technical as to what each role
Yeah,
does.
I imagine.
But my point is just that number one and number three are these huge, oftentimes very fat. Like your number three is
Yeah.
oftentimes not even very muscular. He's very fat. He's just a
Oh,
huge lump of a man or a woman
yeah.
nowadays. But he has a very specific role that he plays.
I
And
see.
so he's able to come and he can play this game because we need him for that position. Then you have your guys like your number 11 and number 14, which is on the wings, right? So they are
So they're the ones
usually
that like run, grab
your
the ball,
fastest
and
guys, yeah. So you get the ball to them
are
and
they
they
the
can
ones
run.
that score the
Oft,
tries or something?
Oftentimes, yeah, they're the ones that score the most tries
Okay, okay.
because they're the fastest, right?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
there's from that big, slow, fat guy to these small, fast guys. There's like a place for everybody in the game.
Yeah.
And everybody can come and play. So I've always loved that aspect about rugby. And like, so when you're talking here about high rocks, I can also get excited about it because you're saying is like there's a place for everybody to come and take part. And that's the
Yeah.
great thing is because oftentimes you'll hear people talk about it and they'll be like, ah, there's nothing really to do. But it's like, okay, there's
Mhm.
this high rocks you can go join. There's even CrossFit, but CrossFit can be quite
So
strenuous when you're
a
starting
little
out.
bit correct. It's a bit too prohibitive
Mm,
because there are just too many disciplines the barriers are quite high. So there are just too many disciplines that require coordination. You're talking weightlifting, you're talking like basic strength, all this kind of
yeah.
stuff, right? So yeah. So it was a good appealing, I think, idea for a lot of people, but and it was supposed to be more for general public, but it did not translate very well.
Mm.
It's totally different from like the whole high rocks thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have all of these. So pretty much what I'm getting at is that there's something for everybody, you know,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
being offered now that you can join the excuse of us like, oh, there's nothing available for me. It's like
I
pretty much
mean,
non-existent anymore.
yeah.
We cannot use that
Look.
anymore. But I want to just jump and move forward on this
Oh yeah,
because I
yeah.
think we
Sorry.
might be shooting time here.
Crashing on you.
Um, there is talking about this with people and all that kind of stuff. That brings another element into play, and that's that one of accountability.
Hmm.
Like, what are some effective ways that, people listening can create accountability for themselves?
Uh, well, I mean, I have to lead with this first because we do have coaching services, right? So I think honestly, if you get a coach, it allows you to commit a lot better. Because it's a very tangible way that you commit. You pay somebody money, you invest in yourself in a sense, and of course, you get somebody that you trust. Don't just randomly pay somebody, but it's somebody that you trust. You feel that it's the person who lead you into this better, lead you along this journey into this better version of yourself. And then that way, it will be. probably the easiest way to get very, very objective feedback. Because at the end of the day, a coach's job is just to be firm, to be very objective, and to help you get out of your own way. Most people, and I will say this, like 99% of people are not able to coach themselves because they cannot get out of their own way. And I'm including myself in that 99% as well, because we are all human. It's just human nature. Objectivity within ourselves is not is not our strongest suit.
Mm.
Even if you practice it all the time. Like I do try to practice as much objectivity for myself, but I also recognize we all have our blind spots, right? It's kind of like, oh, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's because they're an asshole, right?
Yeah.
But you cut somebody off in traffic, oh, you just made a mistake, or you were rushing to work, or it's all right. Yeah.
Or you
So it's
didn't cut
getting
them
a
off. It's just the other guy was rushing, you know? There was a
yeah,
clear gap for you to go into.
yeah. So you know what I mean? So it's just even
Yeah.
something as simple as that we are not being able to be very subjective. At least most people are not.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to get out of our own way, especially when it comes to this, because you're the one going through the changes. And when you go through the changes, you're going to feel a lot of weird shit, right? I have guys that come to me and they want to cut, right? But then when they cut a little bit and they are 2 or 3 weeks in, that they try it on their own, they feel, oh my God, I feel so small. I feel like my shirts are getting too baggy and things like that. But then when you actually take the pictures and I walk them through the journey, you realize, from the pictures, that's not the case. It's just what they feel, so how they perceive themselves. So they can't get out of their own head. And it happens a lot, even with ladies as well. Same thing. So I think getting a coach, getting somebody that's a professional to help you can be very useful. Now, the second part to that is you could get an accountability buddy, but the question is, will they actually keep you accountable? And are you actually going to let them keep you accountable? Because most of the time I see people get an accountability buddy, they'll say, oh, like I'll get my wife to keep me accountable. I'll get my friend to keep me
Mm.
accountable. But beyond the initial enthusiasm of like, oh wow, you're embarking on this thing, and that initial motivation, once that fades, then they actually have to keep you accountable. That's not a very pleasant experience for a relationship, right? Especially if you have not set that precedent at the start, because they might need to really tell you things that you're doing that you might not want to hear, because they have to be honest with you. And so if you don't set that properly from the start, having a friend or having somebody else to hold you accountable can be very challenging. Sometimes it can even result in ruined relationships. Um, so I do think that's like an easier option that a lot of people tend to go with that oftentimes never really bears any fruit. Yeah. Uh,
Because we usually choose the person that we can steamroll, right?
yes. But here's an alternative to that, right? Especially now with social media. One thing you could try to do is you could try social media accountability. So I'll give you an example because I've been doing this over the past month. I one thing I've been wanting to do is I've been wanting to improve my posing for my upcoming bodybuilding competitions.
Mm.
So I need to improve my posing, the presentation of the PC. And so I need to get that practice in. But I don't actually like posing, or I didn't like posing, at least at the start. But I wanted to make sure that I follow through on practicing it, right? Because we're terrible at the things when we first start out, but we need to get better. We need to go through that. So I went on my stories, Instagram stories, and I was like, okay, this is day one of 30 days of me just posing. Um, you know, running through my regular posing rounds in the morning, and then I'll just put a little snippet up of that, and that's my accountability for that day. And so even a simple thing like this tends to work, allows me to develop like reflections on it as I post it up, and then people comment and stuff, and the good part is like I had some other people comment that are more experienced at it than me, and then they're telling me, oh, maybe you can try adjusting this, adjusting that, and I can practice it the next day, and so it kind of opens up a lot of these avenues,
Mm.
and it really worked quite well. Right now I'm on day 20. I started first day of May, just nice. So now I'm on day 28. I think it's of the day we're recording this. Yeah, so I'm on day 28 of it, and my posing, number one, my posing has gotten a lot better. Number two, I have learned a lot in the process. And number three, I think right now I actually enjoy posing just because I got better at it. So I can start to appreciate it more, and I feel like I can express a bit better with the posing and have better control. And it makes it a lot more enjoyable experience versus if I were to just try to do it, oh, I'll just do it only one time a week and all that, right? And the way to really keep me accountable, I'll be like, oh, I hate posing, man. I gotta do this again, you know.
But it's interesting when it comes to social media, though,
Mm.
because not only does it keep you accountable to post, but like for myself, there's a fitness influencer that I follow, and when she posts up, I don't know if she's actually a fitness influencer, but she hits the barbells quite hard.
Okay.
And so one of the things that she does just about every single day is she posts up like a, what do they call it? Is it a poll, I suppose? And it's basically asking, are you checking in today? Meaning,
Oh,
are you going for your
okay.
workout today? And then it's got a yes or a no. And then you punch it, and then it gives you the results of everybody that's actually
Oh, wow.
given the results for the day. And then she'll post that at the end of the day as well. Now, she lives obviously in a different time zone than I do. So I wake up to the results of the poll every day. And then you look at it, it's like, wow, 79% people checked in. Oh, man, I guess I have to check in. These kind of things. I was like, oh, I don't want to
That's
work out
pretty
today, but
cool.
hey, I got the motivation here. Let me just go and do this workout. I can't let
Yeah,
79% of the people beat me at this. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
or if I go to the gym or if I go for my run and kind of things. So it gets that motivation going as well. And like you say, it's a very simple thing that triggers certain different people, right? And for me,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that seems to, it hits me every time.
Yeah. That's honestly pretty awesome, man. I wanna maybe I should try that too. Yeah.
So definitely consider it. But
Yeah.
finally, for anyone listening who's like feels truly stuck in like this inconsistency loop, what would be the final piece of advice that you give them to like break free from this and build lasting habits?
Oh, wow. What's the final piece of advice? This sign feels like a lot of pressure to everything that we talked about. Uh
I'll give you some time to think about it, and I'll just give a couple of words here.
yeah, maybe you what would be your advice?
Is that the very first thing that I would say is, and this is through a discussion that I just had in the past weekend, is find your why. When you find your why helps you to overcome and helps you then to motivate you to build the actions. When you
Hmm.
start building the actions, then the habits are formed. And once the habits are formed, then you start to rely on the systems rather than relying on yourself. When you rely on the systems, it's far more uh, consistent than relying on you because you have emotions. Your systems do not.
Yeah.
And so that's really what my advice would be is for anybody starting out that's really been stuck in the past, find your why, start small, build focus on the actions, build the habits, and then focus on your systems. All right, over to you.
Yeah, I do think that that's honestly one of the best pieces of advice, really. Like I would, at the risk of something like a copycat, I would really double down on what Mike has said here, which is you have to find that reason to do it. You know, a really deep reason that means something to you. You don't necessarily need to tell anybody about it, but you need to tell yourself. You need to be real with yourself. Like, this is the reason why I'm doing this thing.
Hmm,
And as long as you can do that, it will allow you to, and it has enough meaning and weight to it, it will allow you to weather any of the initial growing pains at the very least, because that's where people give up. When things get just a little bit tougher, most people will just give up. So you have to find that reason, that why, as Mike said.
hmm.
So give it some thought. It's not as though it's like, oh, I just want to get healthy. Oh, okay, but why? And the best way to do that is just keep asking yourself about why, about why,
The
about why,
20
about why,
whys.
right? Ask 20 whys, yeah. And then each time you ask a why, go even deeper, give it more depth, right? I want to lose some weight. Why? I want to lose some weight so I can get healthier. Why? I want to lose some weight so I can get healthier so I can feel better. Why? So I can feel better and feel more energetic so that I can play with my kids and actually be there for them. Why? So that I can role model for them and make sure that they grow up healthy and they have the correct values. And I give them the best gift of making sure that they're healthy and have all these habits so that they don't go through the same issues that I went through, you know.
Hmm,
And yeah, just keep asking the why all the way until that level, and it really will help you push through because then it means something, you know.
true,
Yeah.
true. Well, this has been an incredibly valuable conversation. It's clear that consistency isn't about being perfect, but about being persistent, forgiving ourselves for setbacks, and building manageable habits that fit our lives, especially as we aim for lasting health and fitness in our 40s and beyond. So, if you've ever struggled with consistency, and let's be honest, who hasn't, do share this episode with anyone who could use these strategies. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. You can just search for 40plusfit.com or 40plusfit because different ones only allow certain handles. And of course, do hit the subscribe button to make sure that you never miss another episode packed with actionable advice for your journey to a fitter 40 and beyond. And join us next time on 40 Plus Fit when we'll likely be diving into something more community focused. What do you think, Twain?
Yeah, probably. Probably. But this was a fun episode to talk about because I think there's a lot of good, deeper things here that we've addressed that hopefully all of you that have been listening um, have been able to take away and reflect and implement.
Mm. So until the next episode, keep showing up for yourself, even if it's just for 1 minute.
Yeah. I'll see you guys.